Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Drinks and Movies with your hosts, Bearded Comic Bro and John from John's Comics with Kids. Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up for Drinks and Movies.
Woo! Oh, man, we are last show of 2020.
Going out.
We are, man. I feel like we've been doing this forever.
That's not a nice thing to start with. Man, we've been
No,
doing
that's
this
a good thing. Like, because I feel like this is just something I always look for. This isn't like a bad thing. Like, oh my gosh, this feels like we've been doing this forever. Like, this is like, man, I feel like we've been doing this forever. It feels so good. Right? That voice.
Right? Yeah, solid voice work by me. We have a special guest for our show tonight. I'm very excited for this Kirk Douglas retrospective, and we are joined. This is an old actor. We are joined by the oldest of wolves, Tony the Old Wolf.
We can't do a show about one of the oldest actors of all time and not have one of the oldest YouTubers of all time join us. So.
How apropos to have the last show of 2020 with me on it. Thank you very much. That's the whole thing.
Oh, we figured it could be our last show of 2020. It could be the last show ever because you're on. Who knows?
Right. It's all over and done at this point, right?
Yeah, you're done. You're done now.
Plus, you get to sit down there in the bottom row right next to Kirk himself. Look at that. There he is. Look, you pointed the right way.
I did it.
You know, you just got it. You've got it.
And John, you're growing. We're growing on our graphics. We got rid of the Ian Holm little John hands above the picture. So we're growing as a channel here, as a show.
It's all happening. It's all deadly. And we got some awesome people in our chats. Let's say hello to Travis M, tailgater extraordinaire, here at 5 o'clock my time. So that's 3 hours ago.
My dude, Travis.
And he was rapidly joined by some comic book hunter, excited to talk to Kirk Douglas, apparently. Travis says Greg should shave his beard and change the name of his channel to Not So Bearded for a brief time until it grows back.
Yeah, that ain't happening. I appreciate you. I appreciate your support. But
that's
it
a
ain't
slow burn for comedy, yeah.
Come on, I'll shave mine if you shave yours.
Nope. Not happening.
I went with the mustache for a couple of months, and it's pretty much all Perry wants to remember from my channel at this point.
Dude, you look like a porn star with that thing. You look pretty good.
My wife liked it. Salandal Fatima is here, and there's Perry. Look, I just watched 1996 Fear. That really, if you're trying to impress us with the age of that movie, let me shock you with the idea that there are older movies than 1996.
There you go.
just somewhat. Kachung is here. Tony and I were hanging out with him earlier this evening. Good to see you, sir. And hello to Delphia. He's in the chat. The Bearded Comic World. And his link is in the description down below, just like Tony's.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
There is Delphia.
You have a channel?
He does, I think.
Okay.
I keep looking for it. I don't find it. I don't know what you guys keep saying.
Hello, Jeffrey. That voice, though. Yeah, that's my voice. That was my voice. Last show of 2020. Yeah. Going out strong. And what an intro. That's really what I go for on my channel. Hope you guys do this forever. Hey, let's just get through 2020. I'm just saying.
Don't put that expectations on us. It's so much pressure.
He's deep into that bottle. I know. I thought it was a new bottle earlier this evening. Vanessa's here. Vanessa, thank you for coming by. Mrs. Jabroni herself. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's what Jeffrey's saying it too. Look, Travis is still here. He's been here for 3 hours. Brother, I appreciate that, man. Here's to you. Here's to you. Have a little
3 hours. Gee.
A little taste. Let's see here. DJ Sickrick is here, and I know he is excited because he's a big Comic Gories fan, and he knows coming Monday we're going to be throwing down on my channel with the first Comic Gories of season 3. I think it's season 3. Season 3 kickoff, the holiday special, and Captain Comics is going to be there as well.
My captain.
Yes, Captain. Let's see here. Ahoy to Mrs. Jabroni. Arr. So, welcome in, folks. This is another Drinks and Movies extravaganza. We are finishing off the year 2020 by looking back at some amazing, talented people that sadly passed away this year. Although in the case of our conversation piece this evening, 103 years, nothing to be upset about. This was not a tragedy by any stretch of the imagination. Kirk Douglas was an incredible person, and it's, you know, having watched a bunch of his movies the last few weeks, I'm just excited to sort of celebrate the legacy that he left behind.
Absolutely.
But let's talk a little what we're drinking. Tony, that looked like you were doing the Crown Royal tonight.
Yes. This is my go-to. If I could put a baby nipple on here.
So are you? I know you are.
I'm assuming you're meaning like the nipple from a baby's bottle, not an actual baby's nipple, because that's really creeping me out right now.
You never know with Tony.
Yeah, how would you stretch it? Okay, never mind.
Let me ask you this, Tony.
I'm
So
in the basket.
I'm already getting kicked off YouTube.
I know you're Crown, you're straight up, but I did just see that they are doing the Crown Royal with Coke in the cans. Have you tried that?
No, because I don't usually put Coke in my. I don't usually drink.
I don't. And I know
Coke.
I know you're a straight up guy. Like, you know, you like it straight, like it neat. But I saw that. I was like, ooh, Crown Royal in a can. It's a purple can, like the bottle. I was like, I wonder if that's a Old Wolf Sally or not.
I usually drink ginger ale if I mix, not Coke. But I'll give it a try. If I find one, I'll drink it for you. I'll do it right on my show, just for you. But if I don't have a show, because I don't know if I have a channel,
We'll make one for you then.
oh, okay. Thanks.
We can check that. We can figure that out for you.
Okay, thank you.
And Greg, what are you drinking tonight, man?
So I'm going with the token. Start with a beer, and then end with the bourbon. So I'm doing a Revolution
beer for tonight.
What?
That beer seems well named for tonight.
That's why I kind of went there. I was
Anti-hero?
like, I gotta do the anti-hero. It's
Is
an
that
IPA.
Captain Pickle? What is that?
So all their are hops, or all their pictures are done with, like, so there's a Western one which I almost grabbed, and it's all the faces are just a thing of hops. So I could have done the military or the Western, and it would have fit in perfectly for tonight. So
Hello to Carlito Classico. Some comic book hunter says, I'm poor. I'm not drinking that fancy whiskey. I'm drinking my Bud Light and Fireball. Hey, you don't even need to be drinking alcohol.
no, we don't
I follow the old wolf saying that, you know, hey, whatever you want to drink. You want to drink cranberry juice or water, you just drink you, brother.
That's all. No judgment. No just sipping.
Yep.
Drink Beautiful, also known as the French Connection. Interesting. He's having Carlito's having a Tullamore Dew. I've never heard of that.
Very good stuff.
That's good stuff.
Budget whiskey. There you go.
And your shirt, John, is very apropos for tonight.
It is the perfect shirt for this program, I would say. I'm having a little Buffalo Trace whiskey this evening, the Kentucky bourbon. So this was Jabroni had that as like one of his like more popular traditional whiskeys, not his like fancy ones. Eagle Rare is the one he got me onto that's now become my like personal favorite that I save. So this is more a slightly budget whiskey, you could say.
Huh. That's very good whiskey, though.
I'm not doing the ice tonight. I'm doing it straight, doing it neat, like Jabroni. So
you're growing up. I'm impressed, John.
Ka-chung down to coffee. Oh my goodness, it's a little late for the coffee. I'd be up till the next day. I'll tell you right now.
Right, rock and roll.
Yeah, and so am I. I want to discuss a little bit of, you know, usually we say like, where did you first come across this performer? And I do want to do a little bit of that, but I also wanted to talk a little bit about like what you noticed rewatching all these movies, because you had a couple of awesome hot takes in our little private chat on Instagram. I will say I got to know Kirk Douglas in movies through my dad. He's a huge John Wayne fan, and he appears in 2 John Wayne movies. Kirk does. So I kind of got to know him through War Wagon in a big way. That was a huge movie at my house. My dad, we watched War Wagon a ton. I could sing the theme song, you know. Look at those wagons. What are they hauling? Look at those wagons. Where are they going? Yeah.
Our viewership has just dropped down.
Yeah, I lost a couple of views, but Whitewell Comics came just in time to enjoy that. So it's all good.
And thanks for stopping by.
And of course, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Disney movie. So I got to know him through kind of some of that stuff. So for me, what I enjoyed most of going through and rewatching and looking back at some of the movies of his that I missed was how dark his movies were. I was not expecting how I guess my daughters would say how depressing his movies were, but how emotionally heavy his movies were.
Yeah. Man, I will say for me, this was pretty much a fresh start on watching all of it. And Kirk Douglas is one of those, I've always known about Kirk Douglas. I mean, Michael Douglas. I almost wanted to just send you guys a picture of Michael Douglas and put it in black and white and see if anyone would have noticed, because they look identical. They look like twins and they sound like twins.
They sound a ton alike, yeah.
Which was the weirdest thing going back and watching those movies. But I will say, the closest of being exposed to Kirk Douglas was 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I grew up going to Florida all the time, at Disney World, and always trying to go on the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea ride that was always broke because they couldn't ever figure it out. So I always remember we'd watch that movie and we're going to go ride the ride this year. When we go to Disney, we're going to hit it. And it was always broke. It was like the Jaws ride at Universal.
That's right. You didn't miss anything. You sit on the bench. It goes. This goes. You didn't miss anything.
I mean, we wrote it. We finally got you. You take enough shots, you're going to make it. But so 20,000 Leagues Underneath the Sea was the one that, I mean, and I always knew of stuff. I knew of Spartacus, and I'm sure I saw parts of it on TV. And I knew of all his other movies, but I hadn't honestly probably taken the time to sit and actually watch them. So this whole month of just binging on Kirk Douglas was fantastic for me. So these are a lot of my first views. These aren't rewatches for me.
Nice. Whitewell says, I'm going to stay, but I have the vid of thumbs down. So there you go. Thanks.
Oh.
He also said he doesn't drink. I hope you drink water from time to time, and that's fine. You're more than welcome to join us at some point. We're doing something exciting next month. You're more than welcome to join us if you want to drink some water and hang out. What about you, Tony? What were some of your first impressions, and then maybe your current impressions of Kirk Douglas?
Well, I mean, like I said, I'm older than anybody out here, so I've seen him. I've seen the Kirk Douglas, for a while. And to me, he was always like the tough guy who's got but he was a tough guy. Don't mess with him, but he always had like a heart on the back end. So he was always, there was a reason for. He always had a good heart,
right?
But he was a tough punk. You know what I'm saying? He had a big heart. So he would. He up front he'd be like smack bang bang, but he would always be there for the little guy, or he would always there was that movie that you showed. I don't know if you showed it with the guy with the chat where he's shooting the
chicks with the guns, yeah,
right. So that guy he found him on a train, right? And he was like a nothing, and he wasn't going to survive. So he was became his big brother to take care of him. Sure. And so that's a lot of his movies. That's what you get. He's a punk, a bad guy, but he always has a big heart in the tail end.
Hello to Jennifer. Comics will break your heart. Thank you for coming by. Some people in the chat saying people around 1975 grew up watching movies from the 20s to the present. They played them on TV a lot. Yeah, exactly. TCM, AMC. Absolutely. Chug says, my mom got me into Douglas through her love of Burt Lancaster. That makes sense. Yep. OK Corral. Sure. And hey, I didn't see you mention Man from Snowy River. Where's the love for the home country? Carlito says, I think Westerns and Spartacus were the only Douglas movies that he had seen, not deep into that catalog. Hey, well then, hey, this is the chance for you to expand your knowledge. Yeah. And if one knew Spanish and lived in the Southwest, one also saw the old Mexican films as well. Oh, there you go. Let's see. Totally late, but hey, you just got off for work, then have a beer or a glass of water or whatever and chill out with us for a bit. And
you're not really that late. We're just getting started.
Yeah, we're gonna start our first film of the night. We're gonna go with something. I'm gonna start us off with the movie that I think most people would probably recognize and remember him from, which is
Spartacus. No, I'm Spartacus. No, I'm Larry.
Oh, you're Spartacus.
No, you're Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus.
Which one of us is Spartacus?
I'm Spartacus. He's Spartacus.
Yeah, he's Spartacus.
Now we covered him up, which is exactly how we wanted this show to go.
I mean, we're just going to keep moving posters up the whole time.
That's fine. Oh, there you go.
Spartacus. I mean, this is a monumental movie in the career of Kirk Douglas. One of his biggest movies. Obviously, he is the title character, but it's also an early Stanley Kubrick film. Big film in his career. One of his biggest successes in his career. What did you gentlemen have a chance to rewatch or see this movie? Anybody have any impressions?
I did. I watched it. I feel like I've seen Spartacus of any Kirk Douglas movie. Like at least like that's something I was familiar with. But I definitely rewatched it because I was like, I know I had to, and it was streaming on Peacock. And I'll tell you what, if anyone's sleeping on movies that are in black and white, like man. This looks crystal clear, and it was beautiful. So I got to experience it kind of for the first time, and it was interesting coming in because I'm coming in with like, I watched Gladiator, I watched the TV show Spartacus, which is completely different style of a movie or show, but you see this is one of his stronger performances, which is funny too, because it's not one of those times he got nominated for an Academy Award. Right. And I remember going into it and I know enough pop culture. So I know the I'm Spartacus scene and that, I remember watching that thing you do all the time as a kid. And the drummer's always like, I'm Spartacus. So I got those references and I remember watching the movie and I'm like, they got to that scene. I'm like, there's still like 40 minutes left in this movie after this. Like, what? Where are they taking it? And man, I did not see where they were taking it. And I got really sad.
I mean, like I said at the beginning, I feel like rewatching his filmography, there are so many movies that have a hard ending and hit you with some brutal truths at the finale. And this one was
not too many of his movies, and you'll see that running trend, at least from the ones that I got to watch. They don't leave you like feeling good.
No. What about you, Tony? What were your Spartacus impressions?
It was a good film, long film. He was an executive producer on the film.
He was.
Stacey, was it Stacey? Who
Stanley
did
Kubrick.
Which I read he kind of he didn't, after a while, because he didn't have a lot of control on the film, he kind of like disconnected himself from that film.
Yeah, so they had a different director for the first week of filming, somebody who like prepped the movie and got it all up and running, and then the studio and Kirk were both very frustrated with that director, so they fired him. Kirk had recently worked with Stanley Kubrick and convinced Kubrick to come on board. Kubrick didn't have as much power as he would like to have had because he didn't get to decide on the sets and production design and costumes. He had to hit the ground running and make the movie. So in a lot of ways, it's the Kubrick film that he had the least control over, and therefore I think views it as more of a missed opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, the film was more about freedom was more about freedom. Even at the beginning of the movie, he's on the quarry and he's knocking rocks there, and the guy falls down. He helps the guy up, and then he ends up getting. So, the whole thing was about freedom. That's the only reason why he did whatever he did, was because he wanted freedom. And then later on, the main point was that he wanted his son to be free. And that's why at the end, which was very, he's being crucified. He's up on the cross. And the main thing, the whole thing was with the girl showed him his son. He's a free guy, and that's all he ever wanted. So
yeah,
I mean, it's a great film.
Yeah, very powerful, and people throwing out some cool. Goverdal's got some facts about Kubrick and Douglas and their difficulties as a team, but I think they made two of my favorite Kubrick films in a lot of ways.
Goverdal, he's totally correct. They put him up on the cross, and then they went to lunch, and they actually left him on there while they went to lunch.
Which when an actor is such as Kirk Douglas was known to be kind of a dick. I think every once in a while you got to take your shots where you can take them.
There you go. If I could put my boss up on a cross and walk away, I'd do it. No, I like my boss, but just for the hell of it.
Comic book hunter is teasing me, and I appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Although he's mentioning his favorite classes in college about film analysis. The early Horses Running all the way through Chaplin, and then King Kong, and on and on and on. So that's cool, man. I think it's an important area of study because it's kind of the study of American history in a lot of ways, especially if you look at where film took this country. Legion is here. Mark, thanks for coming, man.
What's up, buddy?
So yeah, for me, Spartacus, it hits the same emotional notes that a lot of his movies have at the end. The themes, there's always like big themes going on in his films, whether it's the freedom and the slaves in this one, or the class warfare, which is a big part of this film as well. The idea that there's a huge group on top and they don't care about the group on the, a small group on top, not caring about the large group being trampled underneath.
Right.
And then if this is, of course, a film that was big for the relationship between Douglas and Trumbo, the writer who was blacklisted and worked on writing Spartacus and other Kirk Douglas movies, and was not supposed to get credit, but Kirk Douglas made sure he did get credit, and that was a big deal at the time.
Yeah,
thought I'd throw a little American history blacklist.
That's why we bring you on, John.
Well, for me, I will say one of the things I always really appreciated about Kirk Douglas was he took some hard stands on political topics, including the blacklisting. The Hollywood blacklisting was something that angered him greatly, and he worked really hard for people like Trumbo to get screen credit and to continue to be able to work.
So, well, just in case someone's watching that doesn't know what the blacklisting, well, real quick, just so people know, like as you're going through this, because it is something that he was passionate about.
Yeah, in the McCarthy era of politics in Washington, they were outing people in the United States for being communists because they had ties to certain socialist agendas or groups. And in Hollywood, it was, McCarthy claimed it was rampant and it was this huge thing. And anybody who was even rumored to be a communist had to go testify before Congress and profess that they were not. And if they didn't, or if they weren't believed, they were blacklisted, which means they weren't allowed to make films. They weren't allowed. So they lost their entire livelihood and careers. And they were shunned in a lot of social circles. And it was real. It was awful, as Goverdal says. And people had to sign all kinds of oaths. If you saw the George Clooney film, Good Night and Good Luck, a great movie, it discusses the sort of end of the McCarthy era and how news media was able to kind of shine a light on the hypocrisy that was happening.
It also was prevalent in the story of the Majestic. That was a strong basis in that one too.
Yeah. So what was cool about Kirk Douglas was he was fighting for the blacklisted individuals to continue to get credit and work, which was... At first, it was like, I'll hire Trumbo to rewrite Spartacus, but it'll be on the down low and he'll use a fake name. And then later it was, I'm going to tell the world that it was actually a blacklisted guy who wrote this because it's a huge hit. And then what are they going to do to him? right? So he was really pushing a lot of buttons on this topic, which I couldn't be more impressed by that.
Yeah.
So let's move on. Since we're in Kubrick, I want to do the other one.
Go for it.
I kind of feel like we need to jump over to Paths of Glory, which is another really, really heavy movie, but it might end up being my favorite Kirk Douglas movie of all time. I mean, I just absolutely adore this movie. This is one of Kubrick's very first movies, and talk about a black and white movie that is absolutely perfection to look at the screen. It centers. I'm sorry, I meant to get rid of the poster here.
That's okay. Okay.
No, we're fine.
Tony can come back. It centers on World War I, and it centers on the French troops, specifically in a certain trench warfare battle, where because they were unable to obtain their objective in the battle, troops are put to trial for their life for being cowards.
Yeah.
And if they lose the trial, the court case, they will be executed for cowardice. It's a powerful film. Kirk plays the sort of leader of the troops on the battlefield and the failures that they have there. And then, of course, feels responsible. And so therefore takes the role of their attorney in the court case to try to prove their innocence. It's based on true events, loosely based on real events, because these kinds of things did happen, as far as punishing people by death for cowardice and choosing soldiers by lottery who would be the representative to be tried for such a crime. So there's definitely like historical elements to back it up. But for me, it's just all about the, I guess another dramatic Kirk Douglas movie about injustice.
Tony, what do you think?
Well, it's a great movie. It's a heavy movie. It shows that the generals, there was a big separation between the generals, the command, people in command, and the troops that were actually in the trenches. The whole thing basically was about pride. You got to take the anthill, which was, their objective was the hill, whatever they had to take. And so the general says, okay, we're going to take it. You got do it. And then it was all pride and about his position.
Right.
So it didn't matter who died as long as he looked good in it. So Kirk Douglas, it's his job to get everybody going. Go. Only half of them go. The other half is still stuck in a hole because their leader died, and the second command was afraid of his own shadow, basically. And so, he was a pivot point. If you think about it, he was the main reason why Paris died, because Paris knew that he killed the other guy with a grenade, and so he's covered himself up. So he sends Paris out to be one of the 3 people to get shot.
Yeah.
Okay, and so, but that go back to the general, the pride one. I mean, he was willing to shoot his own men just because they were pinned down in the trench.
Yeah.
So,
but yet again, even between Spartacus and this, you have the people on top not recognizing their own like charges and what those people are going through, and not having a realistic understanding of how things are in the world.
Yeah. And even at the end, right, when everything's, okay, the three soldiers were killed, the general of pride was okay, proving that he was willing to kill his own guys. And the main general who started all this at the beginning about taking the anthill was willing to give Kirk Douglas the position of the pride.
Yeah.
And he couldn't understand that Kirk Douglas did this for the men and not for his position.
That
was a big deal at the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry for a minute. Hey, watch the film. You'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of layers to the drama that's playing out in the film. I'd love to hear it. Greg, you'd never seen this movie before, right?
I hadn't. And I'm not the biggest war movie fan. Like, they're hard for me to enjoy.
Yeah.
But I love a good courtroom drama. And I didn't realize it going into it. Like, that's most of the movie, like that dynamic of, you see the beginning, you see the whole drama of the wartime scene. And to see the emotion that goes through, and especially in those courtroom scenes where, like, it was a loaded trial against these soldiers from the get-go. Like, Kirk is doing his best, and his character in the film of, like, trying to defend their honor. And, like, how can you say they're, cowards when they've done this, and this? And they're like, we don't care about that. We're worried about right now. Like, they're taking out everything that they've ever done and saying that doesn't matter because they didn't care about the truth. They wanted Fall Guys for not getting what they wanted accomplished. And it was tough. Go for it. No, go. Jump in.
I didn't mean to jump in.
No, that's what this is for.
None of the three guys were cowards.
Yeah.
That was the thing. None of the three guys, Paris never left the trench only because he was knocked out.
He was unconscious.
Right. So and the other two were out ran for the hill. So it didn't matter who they chose.
Yeah.
And which was a shame because they weren't cowards at all. I mean, the guy who chose he was the biggest coward of them all.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Gore mentions some of the rules, like 7 Days in May, which is a film I've seen, but I was unable to rewatch it, so I couldn't find it. I saw it a long while ago, and I saw the remake, I want to say, as well. But yeah, his films are often about law versus ideology or nationalism. Yeah. Sorry, Greg, you were saying.
No, and I just think you see that passion. You see his, like, he is doing it for his comrades. He's doing it for his friends. He's doing it for his, the people that he's been in war with. And, he's been going to war with these people and these men who were fighting for him. And, man, it was a punch in the gut, another punch in the gut movie. This is why I say, like, you're not watching Kirk Douglas movies to, like, feel good about it, which is not.
Yeah, they're not feel good movies. No.
They really aren't. I'm trying. I'll have to see maybe as we continue talking. Like, okay, I'll count that as a kind of feel good.
I mean, yeah, they all have some layer of social injustice to discuss, some layer of standing up for a personal truth and the costs of doing that. I mean, they are thought provoking, and I want to say it's because of his theater background. I want to say he was a very passionate stage actor, and he cared a ton about theater. And I mean, one of his earliest movies was The Glass Menagerie, which is like an incredibly powerful play that he got produced as a film. And he's the one who I think he premiered the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest on Broadway. He was the actor playing the lead in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And he bought the rights to that, and tried to make it as a movie, and nobody wanted it. And it was an epic failure to try to make it happen. And then his son, Michael, took it on and finally got it made with Jack Nicholson. It was this huge success that he always teased his dad that he got the Oscar that his dad should have earned for that movie. But his theater background, I think, had to have this effect, I think, of truth over the fantasy of movies. And I think he wanted things to hit on a hard emotional truth and less on the fantasy of movies. I think that's always seemed to be part of his movie.
I think well, personally, I think a lot of his movies are like downers. We brought that up, but I think it stems from his father, his upbringing. When his father was a rag man, which is like lower than the low. You pick up odds and ends materials to sell them. So he didn't have a great life, being like they were immigrants. They were immigrants, and his father, it was basically picking up trash to sell it. So I mean, I guess growing up, that's what he just brought that into his movies.
Yeah, there were Jewish immigrants from Belarus or a portion of Russia. Yeah, I didn't realize how poor they were when they came to this country, though. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so yeah, for me, I love Paths of Glory because of how powerful the truths are. If you're not like getting emotional at the final sequence with the lady singing, like, I don't know what's wrong with you, because that bit hits me in the gut every time.
I mean,
you're not emotional you're not emotional the whole movie, but like the last 35 minutes of the movie, check your pulse.
Yeah.
It lays you flat.
And even at the end, she's a German. They're fighting the Germans.
Right.
And she's singing in German.
Yeah.
And all the French guys are just they would catcall and whatever. But when she started singing, they all stopped. Yeah. And they're all crying, listening to her sing.
Yep.
And then he's told, "Oh, you guys going back? They're going back into the trenches,
back into the front lines." Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
I will say too about this movie one last thing, which was I know that Steven Spielberg and Kubrick were very close, and when Kubrick died, Spielberg apparently was having like a big dinner party, and he stopped the dinner party and made everybody go into his personal theater in his house and watch Paths of Glory. He's like, "This is the movie that we're going to watch that I want to remember him by." And he sat his whole dinner party down there, and they ate their dinners and watched Paths of Glory. So that's what I think of when I think of that movie too.
Awesome.
An iconic voice, just like his dad, just like his son. I mean, I think they both have a really great voice. Tennessee Williams.
We should have had a game show portion of this and played sound bits of a Michael Douglas line and a Kirk Douglas line and seen if the chat can tell us who said it. Because
my daughters were constantly going. Yeah, my daughters were because they've seen Michael Douglas in Ant-Man and the Wasp and Ant-Man, and so they were like, "Is that my?" And they've seen Romancing the Stone, so they're like, "Is that? Wait, which kid is? Wait, who is that?" So hilarious. Don't want to throw panel off, but I got a random question of the day. Do you leave change in the wash machine because you can't handle the sound? No, just change the laundry. Interesting. I appreciate it. We're going to roll on to a movie. I'm going to let Greg pick the next movie. What do you want to talk about, Greg? What movie are you like, I want to get into this one?
You know what? Let's hop into one that I think I was the only one that got a chance to watch. Let's talk about one of his Oscar-nominated movies, The Champion.
I was ready for you.
Good.
So he was nominated for 3 Oscars, and I've only seen one of the 3 movies because I couldn't find this anywhere, and I wasn't going to pay for it right now, but I would love to hear because this is one of his early movies, right?
Yeah, it really was. And so God bless the local library here. As soon as I knew this, I went through my list. I was like, all right, what movies are not streaming? I sent you guys a list of all the movies that were streaming. I'm like, all right. And I knew I wanted to try and at least watch as many of the Oscar-nominated movies. And our library, they have like 10 different branches around the city, and they like, oh, we'll send it to you here in 2 days. And I got it. So this is funny because this is one of those like where we can do movie conversations and not see great movies all the time. Like we literally did a whole segment about The Boxer, about boxing. And I don't know if anyone in the chat, if anyone did, it was Gore that was like, have you seen The Champion? Like, this is where, so I know in one point in our chat, and we haven't gotten there with any of the movies yet with him, I said, like, I made a comment. I'm like, does Kirk Douglas ever play a guy who's not just a complete jerk? And this was stemming off of this movie for me, honestly. His character in this is he will knock and step on and jump over and knock out anyone in his path, in his way to get what he wants, whether that's friends who have helped him out, whether that's his family, whether it's his brother, whether it's his lovers. This was and this is why I want to talk about, because it was interesting. we talk about, I think a lot of times in movies and comics even, of like, I don't feel much for this character. And I didn't feel a lot for this character. And which was interesting going in, knowing that he had won it. And I think watching some of the movies like Paths of Glory, watching the movie Spartacus, where those are both movies where like you really do feel for Kirk Douglas's character. By the way, great sticker. You feel for his character. You feel for what he's going through. Like you have empathy for his character. Well, in this, like, I mean, it goes from like they're going to a boxcar, him and his brother are in a boxcar, basically trying to make do. And they're going to a restaurant that they're going to take over, and they got hoodwinked out of that. And so they start working at this restaurant, and it's this guy's daughter's there, and like, they're going to hook up. So the owner's like, no, you got to get married. And it's like, as soon as they get married, Kirk's like, all right, I'm leaving. Like, this is not so you just start to see this progression that he doesn't care about anyone but himself. And he stumbles into boxing that way because they need someone. And it's just, and he becomes good, and he trains with someone who makes him good. And you just start to get to it. And that's because I couldn't feel empathy for the character. When we got to the end of the movie, his big dramatic speech, the big ending that leaves you like, ugh, this was depressing. Like, it didn't have the same impact for me, because I was like, well, you were kind of a jerk like the whole time.
Yeah, I mean,
1940.
His characters are generally not likable.
Yeah,
or at least flawed consistently.
Yeah.
I mean, Spartacus, maybe he's pretty true to on the inside to being a good person, but he also kills a ton of people. So I mean, like, you balance it all out, I guess.
It's all perspective.
Yeah, right. But I think several things impressive about this movie that I just in researching it, and I tried to look for it, but he'd only been acting for 3 years in movies, and he's nominated for Best Actor for this. And then 3 years later, he's nominated again. So within like the first 6 years of his acting career, he was nominated for Best Actor twice. He really hit the ground running as somebody of an era for me, like connected to that, like that personality of like a Robert Mitchum that really wanted to explore grief and intensity and be just like intense. I mean, he does a lot of overacting, really intense on screen, but a lot of times it sort of fits with what's happening in the film. So I dig it, but he's very explosive.
Yes, he really is.
And
okay. No, I was just gonna say. Oh, neither one of you guys got a chance to see this, right?
No, I didn't see it.
Yeah. But like, boxing though, like for a boom being 1949, like, man, like, it was good. It was an enjoyable movie from a boxing standpoint, even like that. So,
well, he's always been like one of these like huge brawny film. I mean, he's always taken his shirt off in his movies. He was always like one of those early like, I'm a bare-chested, weightlifter guy, which wasn't like the style back then. Like, it wasn't the thing, right? I mean, as much as it is like Chris Hemsworth these days. I don't know. Just was my.
No, you're right.
No, he was very proud of his physique.
He was kind of like
bulging he wasn't huge. He was just tight.
He's kind of like Old Wolf on YouTube, just hanging his shirt.
What's happening?
They had movies back then. I'm serious about it. Don't tell Perry though. He's gonna start looking for stuff. Only if we make him. All right, Tony. Is there a movie that you're interested to discuss? A movie from his list that you're like, oh, I really want to discuss this one.
I saw The Bad and the Beautiful.
Ooh, I was not ready for that one, but there we go. Lana Turner, man.
Yes. It seems like he took the character of the champion and stuck it in this film because this guy's a real prick in this movie.
What's this one about? Because I don't think Greg or I saw it, right? I
have it in my house. Life. I didn't get a chance to watch it yet.
Oh, basically, he becomes a film producer from his father dies, who's a film producer, and he takes over the business. So at the beginning, you have an actress, a screenwriter, and a producer coming to his company to talk to one of his producers that work for him, because he becomes a producer, but he owns the company. He owns the film company. And the producer's asking them to work with him, for these people to work with him again. And they all say no. And during the film, you find out that he's given the screw to each and every one of these to the actress, to the producer, and to the writer. And it's the idea that he'll do anything to make a film, to make the film good, no matter who he has to, hi, how you doing, to anybody he has to give it to him. And like to the writer, he basically caused the death of his wife. To the producer was there from the beginning, and there was the director. He wanted to direct this one film. He wrote it, the whole 9 yards, and he just took it away from him. And the actress, he just used her. Period. It's a good film, a really good film, and the way it's shown, it breaks up, how the history with the director, the history with the actress, and the history with the writer. But at the end, so he wants them all together. He wants them to make one more film. They all say no, but at the end, they're curious to do it. It's the way the movie ended, that it was all on a phone call, and they're listening on the phone call to find out what the movie's about and stuff like that. But he was a real prick.
This was the second film he was nominated for Best Actor for, and from the stuff I read about it, they based the character for Douglas on David O. Selznick, among other like Hollywood producers of the day. But the sort of journey of David O. Selznick was used as inspiration, kind of like Hearst was used for Citizen Kane, like in the same kind of sort of method. But it's obviously an amalgam and it's a fictional character. But for those that know anything about the Hollywood of that era and David O. Selznick and Gone with the Wind and the films that he was creating, his personality is kind of what Douglas was trying to capture.
He captured pretty well, believe me.
So is this another brutal truths, dark ending kind of film for him?
No, actually, it didn't. So he doesn't act. So when the three characters are brought into the producer's office, it's the idea that Kirk Douglas is in Paris and you don't hear him. He only acts during each person's little story about their association with him. So at the end, the producer is on the phone with supposedly Kirk Douglas, and Kirk Douglas wants to know their answer if they'll make the movie with him, and they all say no, and they leave. But they get curious and they pick up the receiver in the outside office and they listen. So you're led to believe that maybe they will make this movie with him, because that's how it ends. Gotcha.
Spoiler alert.
But the whole dark thing is how he uses people, and how their relationship ends. I mean, it's a real good. And I think even in our chats, I still blows my mind
that he was living to be 103. Yeah,
I know. But even in our chats, I questions like that. This guy's a real prick.
That's what he even said. He described himself that way, that he was just a very hard person to work with and be around, that he expected a lot of himself and of others, and everybody had to live up to that sort of expectation. And we did Paths of Glory already, Robert G. Spot, Galvin. We started with the Kubrick films.
Yeah.
But yes, absolutely great movie.
And guys, I just want to say, I don't think we have to say spoiler alert for any movie, because we're talking about movies that came out 60 years ago. if you haven't watched, like, it's kind of like we're now, you like, if you're talking about the movie The Sixth Sense because it came out in like 1999, you don't have to say spoiler alert right now. Like, if you haven't seen it yet,
it's on you.
So if you haven't seen these movies from 1949 and 1956 that we're talking about, like,
right.
Appreciate you guys listening, and hopefully you'll go watch it. But nah, you don't have to. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to jump to one that you can find right now for your family on Disney Channel. We're talking 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I got to switch that banner though, so that we got that going. Early Disney classic. Just a Jules Verne novel. This was a film I remember watching a bunch as a kid. Like, I definitely saw this a bunch with the like Davy Crockett and stuff that Disney was dropping, the live action stuff.
Crockett.
Yeah.
It was my favorite movie as a kid. Was that 1960s Davy Crockett movie?
Yeah.
Sorry,
killed him a bar when he was only 3. I will say I forgot how like philosophical this movie is. Like, I had forgotten how deeply rooted the thoughts about society and destroying itself and the need to return to nature and get away from the cruelties of mankind. And there's some really deep ideas going on in this movie. And of course, like, huge inventions as far as underwater filmmaking and set and production design and these creatures that they built, like practical effects to the nth degree. So I was very impressed and enjoyed this movie a ton. How about you, Greg?
It holds up. It really does. Like, you were talking about like the technical advances of this movie. You don't have the year on this. I mean, it was another like what in the 50s or 60s.
Yeah, I've been trying to keep up. Yeah, I'm 54.
I know you have 54. Like, if you watch the underwater scenes, the submarine, I know even people like make jokes about like when it was like that Kraken like creature at the end with like where you can kind of see it really does hold up. Of like, I was blown away by like looking at it that this is a 60-year-old 70-year-old movie, and the effects didn't look cheesy or hokey for the most part.
Right.
Like, and that was a credit to them in that process. It's funny. I think what Gore said earlier in the chat that when Kirk read the script, there wasn't enough fighting and there wasn't enough without his shirt on.
Right.
So he's like, no, we're going to make this. It was an interesting idea. It was an interesting concept of, going back to the earth, or the water, if you will, like, everything that the captain did, it was, all the food that they were tasting was like, well, this is a seaweed wrapped salad. This is like, this is fresh milk in your coffee from the teat of a, whatever. Like, but like, it was, and this concept of like trying to like advance technology and like because man, the captain's a little bit of a prick in this movie.
Oh, absolutely.
Not by a little bit. He's a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but he was a prick, but there was a reason why he was such a prick.
Yeah, but I don't know if it was a valid reason.
Well, I mean, again, the issue of slavery comes up, indentured servitude, and used as a justification for war, basically, right?
Right. But and that's where you get down to that concept and idea, though, of, yeah, he was, maybe he was freeing the indentured servants on those ships, but he was still killing them. So, like, is that making him any better of a person? Because of, and that's where, those are those dialogues and conversations that you have, which is really weird, I think, for a kid's Disney movie.
But which is, I mean, obviously those are elements of the Jules Verne novel that it's impressive that Disney did not whitewash, right? That he actually like brought into the plot and kept them. So that's kudos to them for that. What did you think, Tony, looking back on this one?
About the movie in general or about
Yeah.
Kirk Douglas?
About the movie in general and anything, yeah.
Well, yes, the Captain Nemo was a prick. And I've said that about 5 times. It's like a drinking game today because I've said that. But, I mean, the situation that he was a slave on that island to get the ingredients to make gunpowder or whatever they were making. And so he was trying to stop war and blowing up the ships that carried the supply, the stuff that they were mined, that type of thing. All good intentions, the road paved, but right. So he had a reason to be the way he was. I don't condone it, but the idea, his son, his wife and son dying, getting killed and stuff like that in the film, you don't see that in the film, but and then the stuff that he was able to invent, he was kept it to himself, and he knew that man couldn't they would use it for war or something like that. So
no, I mean, Jeffrey makes the comment that it scared the crap out of him when he was little, and yeah, I mean, it's a great use of practical effects. The giant squid attack, and of course Nemo's sort of evolution into villain, from rescuer to villain. That is a wonderful journey, and you as the audience go along with it, because at first it's all like fine dining and art and music and a sea lion who plays with you and all these kind of things, and then it's like, no, we're also going to commit murder, and so it definitely derails a little bit as you go along.
And Kirk Douglas trying to drink alcohol from bottles that were maintaining
preserved. Yeah.
Thank you for helping out. I didn't remember when the Space Odyssey happens, but I would definitely trust Gore Vidal's estimate over my facts for sure. Thank you, Robert Galvin. Bearded and I have been enjoying this a ton, so I'm glad that other people are enjoying it too. James Mason, yeah. He plays Nemo, and he pretty much steals this movie. He is very charismatic and very domineering and impressive. That sequence when the cannibals are breaking into the ship, and Kirk's trying to figure out how to protect them, and he's just sort of waiting patiently. There's something very menacing about him. He does a great job.
Yeah, he really does. Like, Kirk Douglas does a great job in this, but you're right. He steals the show because of just how he is as the captain. Like we've said, you don't like him, but there's a difference between you don't like him, but you still kind of like Old Wolf said, you understand at least where he's coming from. You don't agree with him. And I think that takes a special actor to pull that off.
Totally. Because you can sympathize and respect, but also totally think this guy's nutso and I'm not following him anywhere.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Bye, Roscoe. Thanks for coming by, buddy. So, yeah, this one is on Disney Plus, and if you want to watch it with your kiddos and you want to enjoy the throwback of it all, I'll say my girls really enjoyed it, even though they were very frustrated that the fish Nemo might have been named after such a villain.
But if it makes any defense, they've now turned 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea ride at Disney to the Finding Nemo ride at Disney. So
it's all happening.
Full circle. So maybe the fish Nemo got named after a jerk, but your girls can at least appreciate that now the ride is a Nemo ride instead of Captain ride.
So they actually did that?
Yeah. It's now. I want to say it was Little Mermaid, and then it became Nemo. Yeah. That was like the progression, at least at Disneyland, I think.
Well, I think when it started breaking down, they just stopped doing the ride, and it was just Little Mermaid, like on the grotto, and now they then do the ride of or finding you can go and you go through it. Yeah. Because at Disney World, there's more like a Peter Pan type of ride for Little Mermaid now, where you ride in the cart and go through the story of it.
Gotcha.
So, oh, that's cute.
It is.
My dad is here now, and I want to make sure that I talk about the 2 John Wayne movies while he's rolling through here. So I think it's possible Bearded missed both of these and didn't get a chance to check them out.
I missed War Wagon, but I did watch
in harm's
Well,
way.
no, he wasn't in the other one. But go ahead, yeah, because he
So
wasn't.
I want to talk.
OK Corral.
Okay. Oh yeah. I want to talk about War Wagon just for a brief stint here. If I can find I think it's this one. Yeah, there it is.
How's the theme song go to that again, John?
Look at those wagons. What are they hauling? Look at those wagons. Where are they going? Those men are fighting for a wagon full of gold. Yeah, I mean, this is a low bar John Wayne movie, not the best. You know, they have the cliched white guy playing the Native American. They've got several moments that defy description, including Kirk Douglas's entire wardrobe in this movie.
Those are the village people.
Oh my God, it's amazing. It's amazing. He wears so many. He wears a kimono at one point. He wears like black leather shirts. He wears this leather glove with the big old ring on top.
Mm-hmm.
And then a leather. I think he even has like a leather bandana around his neck at one point. I mean, the whole thing is just outrageous. Hey, there you go, Dad. I did it just for you. But at the same time, I absolutely enjoy this movie.
Me too.
And it is an epic piece of nostalgia for me. It's also a heist movie. Mm-hmm. So John Wayne plays a newly released prisoner from prison, and he is going back to the town where he used to own a ranch, but now the big rich magnate of the town has taken it as his own, and he has this gold mine where he's making a lot of money, and he has built this war wagon to transport his gold from one town to the next. It has a Gatling gun turret on top, hard metal all the way around it. 10 horses pulling it, 30 guys with guns in front of it, riding on horses in front, and 30 guys behind, and they just transport this dude's gold around. And of course, John Wayne's got a plan to rob that sucker.
That Gatling gun made no sense inside of that freaking stagecoach.
Not at all. Not in no way does that. There's no logic. Yeah. The bullets are like dropping down all around them, and it's got a handle, so it's like one of those like Civil War era.
And they're spitting out the sides, and people just sitting there watching. Wouldn't you get hurt? I mean,
again, this movie defies a lot of like logic. It is definitely designed for the hilarity of it. Look, Gore Vidal even says it's great. There you go.
Yeah, it was a good movie.
Douglas and Wayne made many films together, respected each other personally. Yeah, politically, they were on polar ends of the spectrum. And even I think as actors and how they tackled performance, I think John Wayne was always very stoic and very low key. And then you look at the explosive nature of Kirk Douglas on screen and the way he performed and the way he was a scene stealer. I think they came at acting in different ways, but they also, I think, could respect and appreciate what the other person brought to the table. And for me, like the joy of this movie is watching the two of them banter and have hilarity. And Kirk Douglas joke about his own chin dimple by saying that he sleeps on his ring at night, and that's why he's got the chin dimple. It's just, there's some funny stuff going on here. But don't hold it up to a bar of 2020. Just enjoy it for the where's the banner for it? Enjoy it for the 1967 that it is.
Well, it's funny. Like I said, I haven't watched this movie, but it's funny because as I've been rewatching all these Kirk Douglas movies, I went in with a mindset of like, all right, I can't hold it to a 2020 candle. And I will say this though, a majority of his movies hold up like to a 2020 lens. Like there aren't too many. Yes, there are some scenes where you're like, oh, that's awkward. Like,
that line or that moment when he slapped her or whatever.
Like there are, but then as you are describing War Wagon, I go, okay, that's the one where I'm like, oh, I didn't watch that, so it makes sense now that I'm like,
Gore Vidal says at one point, both John Wayne and Kirk Douglas were late to the set because they'd been both shooting ad campaigns for the California governor's race, one for each candidate. That's hilarious. Pat Brown versus Ronald Reagan. That's funny.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, the movie, it doesn't have a lot of logic, but it does have a lot of fun. The heist plot is kind of cool, and the ways in which they take apart the war wagon to get to the money is all very fun. Kirk Douglas is really entertaining in it as this sort of like gunslinger who's just made a lot of money killing people and is kind of sitting on his laurels. He's got these two Asian ladies who, solve every need he could possibly want. He's like slapping them on the butt and ringing a bell and getting his tea brought to him. And, she's the pretty lady. At one point they see this pretty Latina lady and she's got her little like tequila spot and he stops by and he gets some tequila and then he pays her by dropping coins down her blouse. Yeah. Really like definitely not like 2020 kosher, but you can see him. He is just hamming this character up.
Are we talking about Kirk Douglas or Old Wolf? Right?
Kirk. This is Kirk top to bottom. Yeah.
Nowadays, you just fold up the dollar and sorry.
Right. Yeah. There was a lot of coins and that was a loose blouse. I was thinking like they were going to end up on the ground somewhere. But
yeah, but her cash register was pretty hefty. So
yes, she definitely had room. So yeah, Tony, what are your thoughts? Had you seen this movie before, Tony?
It was one of the films I watched in this for this.
So you'd never seen it before 2020?
No, I had to watch it before. So hey, I enjoyed it. I like the idea that Kirk Douglas and John Wayne were basically enemies at the
in the movie. Yeah,
if you really thought about it, right? Yeah. And the whole film is okay. They're going to split up the gold, and Kirk Douglas to do something was chipping away at John Wayne's money.
Yeah.
Because to help, if I have to shoot a gun, you're giving me X amount of dollars. If I have to do this, you give me X amount of dollars.
Yeah, the villain wants to pay Kirk Douglas to kill John Wayne,
and they're already working together.
But he's too late to the gamble because John Wayne's gotten to Douglas already and said, "Hey, you help me rob the guy's train. Not only will I give you your share, which is $100,000, I'll pay you $100 a day, and if you have to use your gun, I'll pay you $500 for that day." So Kirk is already playing like both sides against each other and joking back and forth about how like, oh, I shot my gun twice today. You're lucky. You only have to pay me one $500 day. You got to get two $500 days for the price of one. And there's this constant joke about money going on like between.
I like the wagon goes and I'm not spoiling anything. So they use flour. They bury the gold in flour, so it's in the wagon. All you see is flour.
The guy who smuggles the gold out. Yeah,
wagon takes off and see the flour, and they're just collecting all the gold, but they all they see is flour. To them, it's flour.
Right.
And they're collecting all, and Kirk Douglas is all pissed off. Look, they're taking the gold. It's like he took John Wayne's horse.
Yeah.
Right. The only thing that John Wayne had at the time, though, John Wayne knew there was 4 or 5 bags of gold dust hidden away because another guy was stealing it on him. He took his horse as payment for all his work he took off. I thought that was funny because that's all the guy, that's all he had.
Well, and I think that's one of the moments when the film really does look at some of the Douglas themes of class. And you have the poor Native Americans being pushed off their land in the story. And our heroes trying to escape with gold hidden in flour barrels. But when the barrels fall on the side of the road, the gold and the flour mix. And those poor people on the side of the road just start collecting the flour to use as food. And the gold that they've fought so hard to steal now becomes the dinner and the bread that these Latinos are going to go, or these Native Americans are going to go eat that night.
So if you make the bread with the flour, would you chip the tooth because of the gold?
I don't. It's so questionable, right? At what
point?
point?
It's like all those restaurants that do the gold dip chicken wings and stuff like that. the gold flake chicken wings. You can pay $50 to eat chicken wings that are made out of gold. So
that's hilarious. I'll also point out that all the Native Americans in the movie speak Spanish. By the way, there's no like Native American language in this movie. They all speak Spanish.
So who were they fooling? Who were they fooling though in this war wagon where? Like, oh, we're transporting a whole thing of flour, but we have a Gatling gun on it.
The war wagon has the bags of gold. Our heroes, when they steal the gold out of the war wagon, are hiding it in flour.
Like, who's hijacking a flour truck that's like, I bet it has flour because there's a Gatling gun. Like, who has a Gatling gun on their flour truck? Like, that's where I was thinking.
Well, there was a lot of gluten-free people over there, and they were trying to, dump the
It was
flour.
the Ocean's 11 before there was an Ocean's 11.
A lot of people with that celiac, so you got to watch it. So
No kidding.
Shout out to you, Old Wolf from DK, saying you're holding it down with the Crown. And
Yes,
my
I
dad,
am.
my dad, Crown Royal is one of his favorite end of the night kind of drinks as well.
So this is for Pop.
So you're talking John Wayne movies for Ralph, Old Wolf's drinking Crown, man.
So I'm going to jump to the other John Wayne, Kirk Douglas movie that I know that Tony and I have both seen. So we're going to leave out Bearded again, I think. Sorry, Bearded. Where are we at here? Sorry. In Harm's Way.
Solid film.
So this one is a little bit later in their careers, 1960. Oh, sorry, earlier. Actually, this was earlier. I thought this was earlier. This is a World War II post-Pearl Harbor storyline, War in the Pacific. You get to see the effects of Pearl Harbor on several different characters and how it kind of tears them up, and then what it leads them to accomplish during the war in the Pacific. I would say this is a dark role for Kirk Douglas. He plays a very tortured character who goes through some really difficult times and has a very tragic ending, like we would expect from a Kirk Douglas role. And John Wayne as the military commander who doesn't play by the rules and gets chastised for it, but at the same time doesn't stop him from knowing what is right and what is wrong. But he also is the one that has to come out of the war dealing with all the things that happened. It's powerful. It's long. It's like 2 and 45 minutes, I think. This is directed by Otto Preminger. That is right. Thanks to Bearded, we know that it's the Batman villain Otto Preminger.
Mr. Freeze.
Mr. Freeze.
Which is so funny because, like, if I don't get to watch a movie and I know you guys are going to talk about it, I watch the trailer so I at least have an idea of it. And this is one of the only trailers I feel like I've seen where it happens, where the director, like, there's a tank, and then, like, you see Otto Preminger just hop out of the tank, and he goes, "Well, let me tell you about this movie. This star." And I'm watching this. I have no recollection of, like, I haven't seen this movie. I'm watching, like, that is Mr. Freeze. Like, that is 1966. Like, there were 3 different actors that played him. I was like, that's Mr. Freeze. So I went through and was looking real quick, and I sent that to you. I'm like, y'all got to at least put that up, which is also funny because the Penguin, also from 1966, is in this movie as well.
Yes, he is.
So, I mean, had to bring in the comic book side. I do appreciate you doing that for sure. Gore Vidal pointing out some of the intense conservative views of Wayne and how it never affected his friendship with Douglas. That's awesome. And Sanimation knows War Wagon, or is interested in War Wagon, so hopefully you can find it somewhere. But yeah, In Harm's Way, what did you think, Tony? So had you seen this one before?
Never saw this movie. I saw it on was it Hulu? I watched it, and it's a long movie, and I had to. I love the movie, but I hate Hulu. Every time I had to stop the movie to go do something, and when I start the movie over again, I had to start from the beginning. And it's like this might be a 3-hour movie, but it took me 7 hours to get through it. But it's a great movie, and yes, Kirk Douglas in this film, he's messed up in the head. I mean, because of his wife in the beginning. And
his wife is cheating on him.
Right.
And during the Battle of Pearl Harbor, she dies sort of in the arms of the guy she's having an affair with, and it leaves Douglas completely grief-stricken and not knowing how to deal with what he's suffering after the events of Pearl Harbor.
And then he gets then they stick him on an island for as a gas station guy, basically. I mean, it's a filling station for the fleet. And then John Wayne pulls him back into his, when he gets in the just of the island, taking the island and setting up, and then I'm a man. I can't explain things very well, but anyways, yeah. He basically, Kirk Douglas is snaps. Yeah, and then he rapes the girl. Yeah, and because of that, she when she commits suicide, then I guess he feels then he has to make amends for that. And that's
Yeah,
what
you basically just laid out. I mean, this film has rape. This film has suicide. This film has some very heavy themes for a John Wayne movie, and all of it centers around, I think, the grief and trauma coming out of Pearl Harbor. And I think that was a really powerful theme to look at. I think something that clearly Kirk and Otto Preminger have tackled in many films before. For John Wayne, it's an interesting film for him to do. I know that he had just found out he had serious cancer and was about to get like one of his lungs removed in surgery not long after this movie. So people always said that like he might have chosen to do this because he thought he was going to die. So it's a darker film for him, but really, I mean, it's not like Otto's greatest movie or anything, but really tackles some heavy stuff.
No, yeah, it's really heavy. But yeah, I mean, he takes that one-way trip just to find out where the fleet is, you know, to make amends of basically what he did in the past.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and the cast in this though, like I still want to watch this because the cast in this is
stacked.
Who?
It's everybody.
John Wayne, Kirk Douglas. I mean, I have Burgess Meredith, like Patrick O'Neill, Carol O'Connor, like Slim Pickens, like it's George Kennedy. It's loaded, gang.
Yeah. And a bunch of those people show up in another one of the films from Kirk's career that I watched earlier today. But yeah, great cast. So I haven't let Bearded pick for a while. You've been out of the loop on the last couple, so we got to get you in here. What is it you want to talk about?
Let's bring it back into what is probably my favorite Kirk Douglas movie that I watched.
I'm ready already.
You know it, and it's the third movie that we have not talked about that he was nominated for an Oscar. Lust for Life. This was one of those movies where it's not a feel-good movie by any means again, but I loved his character. His character's tortured, not like a prick. It's not like you feel for it because you feel like his mental illness is that he's dealing with and the emotion. And I think Kirk plays it really well. So much so that like he was nominated for an Oscar. So this was his last movie that he was nominated for Best Actor in. And he didn't win. And I was like, I stopped him. I'm like, who beat him for this? Because I'm like, he should have won. And it was freaking Yul Brynner for King and I. Like, that's who beat him for it, because his role in this. So if you don't know Lust for Life, it's the story of Vincent van Gogh and the just tortured artist. I think Kirk Douglas does a phenomenal job in this movie. I'm not an art connoisseur. I haven't been to a lot of art museums. I can't tell you the difference between a Van Gogh and Monet.
Pizarro. He's a big part of this, right?
Yeah.
Well, is that his friend who
Anthony Quinn?
So, and he actually won an Oscar for his portrayal in that, which rightfully deserved as well. This was just one of those movies where I'm watching it, and it is, again, Kirk Douglas has a tendency to overact.
Sorry, that was Gauguin. It was a Gauguin. Sorry.
Oh, Gauguin. Okay. He has a tendency to do that kind of over-the-top overact a little at parts, but it worked really well in this. And you see the passion. You see the pain that he goes through. You see the relationships that he has, with his brother. You see the relationships that he desires to have, like that he longs to have these relationships and connections, and that he doesn't, whether it's with, whether it's with a female companion or honestly just as a friend, and how he almost goes too over the top sometimes to have that friendship because he is such a lonely painter that he desires those connections that we all desire in life. And I thought it was a beautiful telling of just someone who's trying to, and he's dealing with, and I didn't know his story. And, he signs himself into a mental institute and, and I'm like, oh man, I hope it doesn't end here. And it didn't. And like, that made me happy. And I don't know how accurate the story is with the actual life of Van Gogh.
It's pretty close. I mean, one of the things I love about it is the relationship between the Van Gogh or Vincent and his brother Theo. Because Theo and they wrote a ton of letters between each other, and they used a lot of that as like the building blocks for the story. And I really love that. Sorry, you were saying about like the ending and the resolution in some way.
You see that resolution with his brother towards the end of the dynamics of his brother. Like, I feel like so often you could get Vincent's character could have gotten pushed off as like, oh, well, you're just a recluse who does what he wants. You're squandering the stuff. Like, his brother supported him through his whole life. Theo supported him the whole time. Vincent, and I didn't know this stuff, but Vincent had only sold one painting.
Yeah.
Ever. And if you ask who's a famous painter, people will say Vincent Van Gogh. Like, and the guy sold one painting in his life. And it was mind blowing to me of that. But like, you see his passion. You saw what he, the arc that he went through as a character who, his father being a pastor,
that the sequence at the beginning when you see him trying to find his calling in faith and how it tears him apart, like just wanting to give everything he owns and everything he has to his parishioners, and the suffering that they feel is his suffering. He takes all of that on, and then that becomes his painting, right? He paints the people that he passionately cares about, the peasants or the friends. And he paints their truth, and he takes all that weight on himself.
Yeah, and you saw that with his, because then like he was a pastor, a priest of a coal mining kind of town, and he wanted to know his parishioners. He wanted to be where they were at. He wanted to relate to them, and he went and was working in the coal mines with them, like being there with his people, and then like the hierarchs of the church come into him at one point and are like, what, you're sleeping on straw, you're giving away your money, like this isn't what we do as a church. And it was like this kind of like dynamic of like, yeah, but this is kind of what you should be doing. Like, and his process of dealing with this as being a son of a pastor and trying to balance this idea of finding his self. And you see that pain that he took on of like the people, like, should I be better than these people that he would take on? And then you see that in his painting. You see that in his, his suffering that he goes through of not being able to have those relationships and those connections. Yeah. And I thought it was beautiful. And I thought Kirk Douglas does a great job in that movie. And if you haven't seen it,
he looks like the self-portraits that we have obviously today of Vincent. He looks just like it. Like that when he wears the hat at the right angle and he's got the beard all tuffed out, and he just appears to be him. It's amazing.
Yeah, it reminded me, just because of like going down like memory lane, like it reminded me of Midnight in Paris, the movie when we talked about, where Owen Wilson's going and living with all these like famous writers.
Yeah, Hemingway.
To see the interaction with all these famous artists. And just what it was going through of like trying to make a living and trying to, what is art, and they have that debate. They have those struggles of, well, you have to feel the emotion of the painting. You have to, you have to see the lights, and others like, well, that's trash. This is just what everyone else does. And this would be one that I would recommend to people if they're like, hey, I want to watch a good Kirk Douglas movie. This would be one of the top of my list. I love it.
Cool. And it's a color film for 1956, and the colors are phenomenal. I mean, it's a big part of the story is, Vincent's use of color and the birth of impressionist painters, and then all of that visual element plays a huge part. So it's one of his like most beautiful films to look at. Like, it's just stunning.
It's animation. That's really cool. I didn't know she mentioned that.
The Japanese art. Yeah.
They don't really hit on that.
No, I mean, they do follow him to several other countries and to all the different places and painters that he interacted with to inspire what he was doing. So it doesn't surprise me, at least in the least, to know that he had that passion. And having visited the museum in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, that is named for him, he has such. I mean, you see it in the movie. How many pieces he was creating constantly, and then making giant piles of stuff, just like pile it up, and it's not good enough. I'm just going to keep going.
The end scene, one of the end scenes where he's in his brother's apartment, and he's like, "I didn't realize I sent you all so much work. It's like you don't have room for anything." And they're like all the classic Vincent Van Gogh paintings.
Every single one is an masterpiece.
I recognize that one. I recognize that. I recognize that. I recognize that. I recognize that. And
absolutely
so cool.
I have just one more I wanted to go over, and then if there's any last ones you guys want to discuss, we can filter through any last ones too. But today I watched Lonely Are the Brave, and I might be the only one that watched this movie. Let me see if I can find the poster for people to appreciate. It was the very first one. Sorry. Lonely Are the Brave. It reminded me a lot, for those that have seen like Cool Hand Luke. It's definitely got a rebel without a cause element. The idea of a cowboy who has outlived his time in history and, lives in the era of freeways and airplanes and helicopters, and yet represents a different era. And when he has a friend who's locked in prison, he decides to get himself thrown in so he can bust his buddy out again, because he's like, yeah, that's what outlaws do. That's what we do for each other. But his buddy's like, no, I'm married. I have a family. Like, I've got 2 more years left and I'll be free. Like, I don't want to bust out. So then Kirk busts himself out, and then he gets hunted by Walter Matthau and others, including George Kennedy, who we mentioned earlier. And then it's a dark sort of journey to escape the police on horseback up an incredibly steep ravine. And the police have helicopters, and they've got, men with guns chasing him, and he's this cowboy with his horse. And it's sort of a look at the death of the Western in some ways and the end of an era. It reminded me a ton of, films like Rebel Without a Cause, where you just feel like this person is suffering because they are out of time. They're in the wrong part of the world or the wrong era and suffering for that. It's definitely a dark movie with a dark ending. My girls were watching the end. I'm like, I just hope that the horse makes it out of this, is all I kept saying to the girls. Like, just like, other than that, like, I don't know what's going to go on. And needless to say,
make it?
No. It's everything is very metaphorical. The idea that like that Carol O'Connor is in it, and he's got this part all the way through it where he's just driving a big rig, and it's not connected to the plot the whole time. You're like, why do they keep cutting this guy driving the big rig? And then towards the end, you realize, I think Kirk's got to cross a busy highway to get away from the cops, and this is not going to go well. And of course, it's like dark and it's rainy, and Carol O'Connor's a little sleepy, and he's driving super fast, and it's like, yeah, this is not going to go well. And again, the metaphor of the progression of time and moving away from horses and into the era of cars and big freeways. It's very metaphorical, very powerful, and just brutal. So there you go. I don't know if anybody else saw this one.
I didn't get a chance to see it.
You actually had your kids watch a movie that the horse gets hit by a truck.
I didn't know what was going to happen.
I mean, I watched Neverending Story, so
Oof. That was more depressing to me than this. But again, I saw that as a kid, and I saw this.
I saw that as a kid, so I mean, Atreyu, I get it. So.
My dad's asking. The director is David Miller, who I am not familiar with. He did a film called Flying Tigers with John Wayne. He did a movie called Billy the Kid, obviously about Billy the Kid, but with Brian Donlevy. No, Robert Taylor as Billy. And he did a Marx Brothers movie as well, called Love Happy.
I haven't seen that one.
So there you go. A few different things that he did, but I hadn't heard of him before. So now that I see Flying Tigers, I know that that's a John Wayne movie that I've seen. But this was really well done, very hard to watch, and beautifully shot black and white movie, and an odd kind of Walter Matthau role as the cop chasing him. That element reminded me a ton of Hell or High Water. The sheriff who feels like I really shouldn't be wasting my time chasing this guy. He hasn't really broken any significant law except he broke out of jail and he got thrown into jail for a bar fight. Like, why are we wasting man hours chasing this guy up a ravine and trying to kill him? Like, I could see the regret in him, and just like the Jeff Bridges character in Hell or High Water, he's looking at these guys going, "This is not going to end well. We're heading down a road here that's just going to go bad." And so it was an interesting role for Matthau.
Yeah.
So there you go. Did anybody else have a movie they want to discuss? I know we're at the 1:30 mark.
I do, but Olaf, do you have one?
You go first.
Well, I'm asking you. You're our guest.
I'm not a guest. I'm just like
You are our guest.
Okay. Strange Love of Martha Ives, his first film.
We saw his first film.
Dedication.
I don't even know. I'm trying to write this banner while you're saying it, and I probably messed it
Talk
up.
about it, Olaf. Let us know.
It starts out as three kids. One is on the wrong side of the tracks. The other two is a girl who likes the other guy from the other side of the tracks, and one is a kid whose father works for the grandmother of the girl, and who likes the other guy from. Anyways, so this is his first film. The kid, they separate. The kid from the other side of the tracks leaves with the circus, basically, and the other two stay together. And then years later, the kid who from the other side of the tracks does pretty good. He's not rich, but he's coming back. And the other two get married, and he's the district attorney. It's his first film, but you see how you see the way he's going with his future, being the doc kind of guy. The girl is very ambitious, and so because of that, she's pushing Kirk Douglas to be the district attorney, and then after that to be other in politics, whatever. And you see how the relationship, how the guy who came back from the wrong side of the tracks is the nice guy, is the good guy, and the other two are not so good. And it's a weird ending because the Kirk Douglas and the girl who's Barbara Stanwyck.
Oh yeah, love Barbara Stanwyck.
End up killing each other.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was a real good film. I mean, I enjoyed it. Oh, 1946. Yeah, that was. But you saw how he was. If you like, you say he's over the top, whatever. But he was a solid character in that film. And
I jokingly say over the top, but he always had these big Al Pacino-like moments where he would just be like explosive in his anger, and he would break things or throw things. He was always just very, I would say explosive is the word that comes to mind when I think of his performances.
He gave a real strong acting thing. And again, I'm not, I don't have a lot of words. Acting thing, but you saw the twinkle, the edge of evil in his eyes. You know what I'm saying? And he wanted to make sure that because in a small part, the girl's grandmother is killed, and she's tripped by the granddaughter down the stairs, and they think the guy from the other side of the tracks knew about it, which he didn't. He had left the house before they did the dirty deed. So when everybody gets back, when they're adults, they're trying, because they think that he knows that what they did, they're trying to the other guy.
They're trying to use it to get him out of the picture.
Right. And so and he's using his powers as an attorney to do it to him.
Gotcha.
So I mean, it's a film you guys should watch. I think you should. But it showed that what he had in the future, you could see it there. You know what I'm saying? It was his first film, and it was powerful and well acted, and it was just it just showed what he was going to do in later years. It was a really good film. If that makes sense.
Crazy, which is crazy that his first film, 1946, he passed away this year. His 74 years ago. Like that is bonkers to me.
Yeah.
That's why we had to end our series with Kirk Douglas because, I mean, man, the guy.
Yeah, his screen presence. Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. Although it's different spell, whatever. But like, the way he was on screen, his presence on screen was pretty amazing.
Pop saw it because he's saying it's a very sad story.
I think he was talking about Lonely Are the Brave because he was the one this morning. I said, "Oh, I'm not gonna have. I got to pick Ace in the Hole or Lonely Are the Brave." He's like, "Watch Lonely Are the Brave."
Okay.
He was the one that recommended that one to me.
Well, John, it's funny that you mentioned that because I feel like you know what the last one I want to talk about is.
I think
your right shoulder.
I was gonna say, I think I've got. Isn't this from that one?
It is.
He's so cool, man. He's so cool.
So,
lighting a cigarette.
So, have you had a chance to? Did you have a chance to watch it at some point, or
no? I've never seen it. It.
Okay. So, I know your dad said watch. What was it? Lonely and the Brave. Okay. Knowing you also though, and your style of movies that you like. Watch Ace in the Hole because if you watched our show last time we were doing crime movies, you focused a lot on the investigative reporting aspect, the journalism side of is that a crime and things like that. Ace in the Hole, if you haven't watched it, is this idea of he is a journalist who he's been fired from New York, from Chicago, all these big press papers, for slander or whatever, libel, whatever, all the, or certain things. And he'll do what he needs to do to get a story. And the premise of this story is he now is working at a newspaper in Albuquerque. And in Albuquerque, he's been there for like a year after he joins into this. And as you see in the movie poster, a treasure seeker, he's being sent out to go write a story about like a rattlesnake rally party, like whatever they do in Albuquerque. I don't know if you're in New Mexico, like whatever weird stuff you all do for fun, like that's what they're doing. And he goes out to this, and on their way out, he finds a guy who's trapped in a cave, and it's an ancient Indian burial kind of vault thing, and he understands, like he knows the longer that this guy's trapped in the cave, the longer he has a story, and the longer he can then monopolize that and get himself back into a job. And so the wife of the guy who's trapped in the cave runs like a mom and shop convenience store kind of thing that they're at. He becomes kind of buddies with her. He starts to become buddies with the sheriff of the town. He's like, hey, if you kind of like block out all these other reporters, when they come in and let me have the lead, I can help get you reelected and things like this. So like he's setting the stage up and people are like, well, we can easily go through and build up stuff like this to get the guy out of the cave. And he's going in and like having this relationship with the guy and trying to be friends and build this. And it's this really moral dilemma of like, they easily could save the guy if they just go through the way that, the contractor's like, hey, if we support the structure here, we can go in, we can get him out. And they're like, no, but if we drill from the top, we can get him out. It's safer that way. It's going to take 7 more days to do that. And it's just, but he knows the longer that goes, the more press he's going to get, the more coverage he can get, the more he can leverage that with the bigger papers. And it's just this moral dilemma of what do you do in a situation? this, and also I think it was why I said, like, is every movie he's a jerk in? Because
Yeah, he's a dark character. I read a little bit about it because I knew I was going to try. It was on my list to try to watch,
and
yeah,
it was
dark.
And it's that kind of concept of like, okay, well, you understand why he's doing what he's doing. He's playing fast and loose with someone's life, but you understand, like, whether it's right or wrong, and it's wrong. You understand. I said, well, right or wrong, like, well, no, it's wrong, but you get why he's at least doing it, like, because he's looking out for number one. He's looking out. I mean, the guy lights a cigarette with a typewriter. You saw that in the video club. Like, the guy does, like, come on.
I love that GIF or whatever. See if I can find it. It's amazing.
And then the moral dilemma of what happens to the guy in the cave, what then happens with Kirk Douglas's character of trying to like say like, I didn't feel empathy for his character in Champion. I felt empathy for his character here because I thought it was I felt like he did a better job at this of trying to balance that and repent kind of his actions and transgressions that he did. So I think it's definitely is one that if you can find it, this was the one I got from the library, definitely check it out because it deals with the idea of journalism. And I think, and even in our culture of, what do you do to get a story? What do you do to get noticed and to get your stuff out there? And what are the lengths that you'll go to? And it's interesting because this is probably a 1956 movie or something, or 1960s movie. And it's the same thing here. Like, what do you do as a reporter to get that story? 1951. Like, what do you do?
And I shout out to, he's not going to listen, but I mean, like, because he's not alive. Billy Wilder. This is a Billy Wilder written, produced, directed film, which is one of his first times working without his writing partner from his previous films. And so I was definitely curious to see it just because of Billy Wilder. It's one of his noteworthy films.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely one to watch at some point.
Then I'm happy that I've got it on the flash drive. I can plug that in and check that one out. Not with the kids though. Gore mentioned a couple of honorable mentions for him: Out of the Past, which was a film he did with Robert Mitchum, and Final Countdown, which I've never heard of, with Catherine Ross. Okay.
I was disappointed with Final Countdown. To me, it reminded me of a made-for-TV movie almost. I'm sorry to say. I was looking forward to watch it and disappointed.
I will say my honorable mention is, I know it gets outshadowed by several iterations that came later, but I'm a big Gunfight at the OK Corral fan, and I know that we've talked about his gunslinging earlier and all the cool things that Kirk can do, but this is not from Gunfight in the OK Corral. I just thought it was a cowboy moment, so we can share that. Oh, there's your Huckleberry.
It's the wrong one, but
it is the wrong one.
The only thing with the OK Corral is they overused his TB too much, I think, in the film. Because if you read about the character died 7 to 8 years after OK Corral. So I know he had tuberculosis in the film. The character had the TB, but they used it too. I think they used it too much in the film. He wouldn't be as bad as they made him out to be. At least I don't think so.
Well, I mean, it's very prevalent, though, even in one of my favorite westerns of Tombstone. Like, I mean, it's something that it was something that Doc Holliday dealt with at the end. So I will say, and this is really random, my biggest problem watching these Kirk Douglas movies is, good golly, they need sound engineers, because I'm trying to watch this movie while my kids are freaking sleeping. I'm in the basement and it's like dialogue, so I have it up at 20, and then as soon as like I'm like, oh, like the music, like, so I'm like on the volume control up and down, and I'm just like, buckets, people, come on. And I even got like loud sound on the thing, like muted, but I started watching. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna work during the night, and I'm gonna watch during the day so I can do that.
I will try Comic Book Hunter to add the list of movies in chronological order so you can have a little list going as best I can, for sure. That's a great idea, and we'll try to do that better next time.
And if as you guys watch the show, always let us know suggestions. You know,
we love hearing the shout outs for movies that we didn't get to. And I was going to give Old Wolf a chance to give an honorable mention for a movie. Maybe if I know he watched way more than I watched for this program.
Same.
Honorable mention, huh?
Just something that you were like, hey, I really enjoyed this one. And maybe it's something we've already mentioned. I don't know. You just take your pick. What do you like? Final notice.
Indian Hunter. The Indian Fighter was pretty good.
Indian Fighter?
Yeah, with Walter Matthau was also in that one.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
It's funny how some people like George Kennedy or whatever would pop up. Carol O'Connor pops up. I think that.
I'm also really mad I didn't get a chance. I know it does have good reviews. I really want to still find It Runs in the Family because it's the movie with Kirk Douglas and Michael Douglas.
And I think one of Michael's sons is in it too.
Is it? I want
like 3 generations of Douglases.
Oh, Cameron Douglas.
Yeah.
And Diana Douglas. I'm guessing they're all somewhat related somehow. If you're in this cast and they're Douglas, I'm assuming you're related.
It's kind of like a set at that point.
What is it, like a documentary of things of happy?
No,
things?
it's like a comedy. It's like a family comedy.
And I think that's the only one that they did together. I don't know if Michael and Kirk did anything else together.
Not that I'm aware of. I can't remember. Maybe there was something I'm not remembering. I don't know.
That's a good question.
Well, that's. Sorry. Did you get a chance to say an honorable mention, Greg? Did we already do that?
No. I said all I wanted to, but I will say Comic Book Hunter. At some point, we will probably have a conversation about Casablanca.
I mean, it just has to happen.
It has to happen when we're talking movies and drinks. So
we're just trying to go through some fun themes, and we a sort of look back became a fun way to do November and December with all the holidays mixing in. But it is the perfect time to mention what we're planning with January rolling around. Our plan for this series is we're going to be looking at, hold your breath, comic fans. We're looking at musicals. This channel will be alive with the sound of music. So if you are a fan of musicals, animated Disney musicals, classic Hollywood musicals,
modern day
musicals, are they even a musical movies? Definitely hit us up. We've already got some guests who might want to join us for certain portions, and we're trying to put together some viewing plans between the two of us. But we feel like nobody talks about these movies in our community for sure. And I am a fan. I'm a fan of musicals.
We are. This is where John and I are like when we're doing our show. Like we do it because of what we want. Like we're talking like modern day movies, and now we're talking like movies from 1950s, which is not token for comic books.
Yeah, exactly. Like Sean Connery and Kirk Douglas, the manly men, and now we're gonna roll into Kelly and do some fancy footwork, right? So the plan in January to roll through some musicals.
I'm not going to, Gore. If you're talking about the new one, I'm not watching it. I am not watching the new one.
The new what?
The new Cats musical? Nope, that ain't happening.
So are we saying that The Warriors is a musical?
Well, we always like to include the category of is it a musical when we're discussing a certain genre. So we might have some hot take picks, just like me calling Ace Ventura a sports movie. You might find some similar hot takes for is it a musical.
Now, John, I'm really surprised that when we were talking about Kirk Douglas movies, that for your honorable mention, you did not talk about Time Bandits.
I was gonna, but I didn't really want to bog down. We're almost at 2 hours and we haven't even come close to. But yeah, of course, he has a great part in Time Bandits. He plays nobody. I literally this morning I was gonna load that movie poster, but I was like, you know what? It's not worth it. It's a joke that only you and I would laugh at.
And
even Tony's like, why is that funny?
And yeah, but at this stage of the night where we got 6 people watching it, if you're still watching, that means you've watched this for a while. You laugh at that too. So
these are our people. So
come on.
If you don't know the Old Wolf channel, that means you're not watching Tag Team Thursday, because every Thursday we roll from Rod the Rican through my channel and onto Tony's, and you get 3 back-to-back-to-back pieces of comic book entertainment and news. So definitely click the link to his channel down below. If you don't know the Bearded Comic Bro, then maybe this is the first time you've checked in on Drinks and Movies, because he is the man rocking this show with me every single Saturday when we do it. He also does amazing content. He's right now rocking through with his wife doing the Name That Character. He got just roasted with an incredibly challenging one this last Friday that me and Charlie we watch every Friday on the way home from school, and she leaves a comment because I'm driving, so she always comments. and it was like incredibly challenging this round, because it was like blurred pictures. Can you name the superhero in this blurred picture? Hilarious. And he's doing amalgam comics. He's looking at those awesome 90s. We're going to blend together Batman and Wolverine and share it with you comic books. So he's got a ton of great edited content going on over there. Did I miss anything good?
And then I also do interviews every Wednesday, and I've got some really dope interviews coming. And y'all know we do Name That Character, and next Friday when we do Name That Character, it's Christmas, so naturally we're not going to do an episode. En contraire, we already have it shot. We're doing hot takes right here, not hot takes, special information. We are doing Name That Obscure Christmas Movie, and I throw Mrs. Bearded under the bus for what she did to me this Friday.
That's hilarious. It's like I'm expecting a ton of crappy Hallmark movies.
So there it's not Hallmark movies. It's more of like, is it a Christmas movie? And I will say this because I don't want to offend John, and by saying this, he'll know what one of the first movies we talk about is. There are some movies that all these movies are clearly Christmas movies, but they're not like people are like your token ones.
That's right. Obviously, I appreciate the counter programming of movies like Gremlins, so I'm all down for this for sure. So that is it for this awesome crew. I am only doing one show between now and next Sunday. So one time I'm on YouTube between right now and Sunday the 27th.
He'll be on more shows later.
I am doing Comic Gories Monday night, the holiday special on Comic Gories. Bearded Comic Bro is going to be there. He has volunteered to run around his house and make his house a mess during the holidays just to play Comic Gories. It should be a ton of fun. We're going to have 16 members of this comic book community rolling through the competition. My buddy JP is going to be working with me to co-host. We're going to probably have a ton of shenanigans with technology because this is the first time I've done this all, but it's going to be a blast. So I hope you're all there for it on Monday night on my channel. I think it's 9 Eastern is what we said, or maybe it was 8 Eastern. I don't remember because I haven't typed up all the info because I've been too busy watching Kirk Douglas movies.
I'll be there wherever time it is.
So huge thanks to Old Wolf for staying up because it's 1 a.m. his time. So cheers to you, Old Wolf. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for joining us, buddy.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you to those of you in the chat for staying late. This is the Gore Vidal sponsored show. So thank you, Gore, for being here. And Dad, I know you appreciated all this. So thank you for staying up late too, man.
We love our sponsors, John's dad and Gore Vidal. Brought to you.
And some comic book hunter staying through to the end. Those are the 3 people in the chat right now. So much appreciated.
Yes.
Everybody have a great night, and we are going to get out of here. So thank you all for coming, and we'll be back again in January.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for drinks and movies.